Um, so I'm introducing Victoria. Victoria is a good friend of mine, and I think one of the most fierce women that I know here in Brighton. And also someone who I think is very strong and very passionate in what she does. And I'm sure that she will come across to you as passionate as the way I perceive her tonight. I'm sure of it. I'm going to read you her official bio. Victoria Holt. Victoria is a pervert and social activist who writes on what she knows, which is pain, money, and men, often cohabiting temporally and spatially at the same time. She has 2 degrees, 1 cat, many lovers, and works for a women's charity. She does a lot of things and is good at some of them. She is new to performance, and in fact, this is her 2nd performance, so you really gotta give it up for her, because I'm so proud that she is here with this amazing crowd. So, yeah, I'm excited, and Victoria, come up, please.
I have 2 pieces I'm going to read. They're not poems, but before I read the second piece, it's important to know that I talk about sex in a fairly violent way, and maybe consider this something of a content note if you don't feel strong enough to hear what I have to say, because I talk about sex in a violent way, not necessarily sexual violence. So this is only the 2nd time I've ever performed ever, so I am very nervous, and I've taken my glasses off so I don't have to see any of you. So the first piece I'm going to read is called Nipple Ring. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with a remover to remove, wrote Shakespeare once, but not for me. Love grew tumorly and morphed relentlessly, expanded unknowingly and etched unconsentingly. Maddened by the lack of control my feelings took, my words that day spat across to you were unable to be swallowed by the rage that pushed them out. I was angry at myself for falling in love, and I was weakened by how I felt. My thoughts, once rigid, were now broken and consumed by you. I had once found peace in the night, but then I slept only to dream about you. Violent sleepers rest wearily compared to the slumber-born scraps that night terror brings, enveloping us here in hair-lain arms I lie and wait for peace. But to those depths of dreams I change nothing, because I tuck gently in, twining my hands in you, placing feet between thighs and breathing in every moment of the night. My back murmurs against your chest, skin curling against yours, and I weave my breaths around the humming grinds escaping you. I sleep smiling then, those times I sleep at all, and when I wake the dream will slip, but for now I hold it and hold you until shifted. Here is where I gave you all of myself, shamefully giving myself away. Words said in anger linger when the lingering ends, and this body and the girl trapped inside had already become yours. Those fingers I once playfully kissed now closed around my neck. They traced the bruises hidden under hair that I apologized for when your red mist moored and guilt grew through. My fear of you made you a victim of me, and for that I'm just so sorry. I'm sorry you felt so awful, and I don't want you to feel that way again. I'm sorry I left my blood on your fingers, and I'm sorry I made you so angry, and I know it's only because you care, and I'm sorry that I spoke too much, too loudly, too often, and with too many others. But I suppose this was my punishment for falling. I fell too hard, my arms wrenched by you behind my back. I fell flatly alone, slamming face into dirt with split lips and slit lids, cracked hips and a bruised clit. I never knew then how a heart could rip. But this was my own fault, you quipped, because gracious girls don't require the whip. So lie back and come with to those nights with the monster who climbed up from under the bedded dregs of my solitude. I watched you sleep and wondered how you'd pulled this cold cloak of loneliness over me, stifling breath and holding back my words, Your reasons were your own, and flickered eyes and slumbered slurs gave no secrets to reach across those passion-pied sheets, where I had flawed what I had done, folded in, ripped out, and overrun, desperate to touch from anything. Back then, even a kiss with a fist would have been bliss, and I remembered our first fuck with your wrist in my hair and weight on my neck, tracing kisses in the aftermath that I desperately sought. Your nipple ring with its history did wink at me, and with a stab that hateful night, I felt it first, how jealousy could be such a curse. Wanted so, even though the putrid form that jealousy took when shallow-buried steel glinted mirthlessly. Jealousy, yes, not of others, but of objects lying limp. That nipple ring nestled in the place that even then I so longed to be, between hairs on your chest and pierced under your skin, under your arm to be protected, and next to your heart to be loved. Thanks. So this was written across quite a long period of time, so it's on two pieces of paper and a book. I've got a bit of an intro to this piece. I'm reluctant to allow my tales to be about men, but I also believe that my stories are shaped by those who made it. And my time as a sex worker was never actually about my clients. And now that I'm a social activist and fighter for the rights of sex workers, my anger isn't directed at men and it's not directed at clients, but they do shape it. And so it's still my story, and it's still my collection of stories, but I feel that I needed to say that men are, for the most part, irrelevant to me, but they do make up my story, which is why they're included in it. So yeah, maybe just be mindful of what I said before, but it's important that I tell this, so there we go. Client 2469 got in touch with me over email at first. He was polite and he asked if he could bring some clothes with him for me to wear. A common request, so I agreed, expecting a particular style of underwear or dress. He was around 40 and surprisingly handsome. I never know who's going to show up when I take a booking, and though I've been doing this long enough to know better, I'm still surprised when youngish and attractive-ish men knock on my door. He sat on my bed and told me about how his wife had died at 32 of pancreatic cancer. She'd wasted away before his eyes and died in a matter of months, and he'd brought along some of her clothes and asked me to pick a few pieces out. I stripped in front of him and put on a denim skirt and plain white shirt and noticed a stain on them. I lay back on the bed and he lay on top of me, cupping my face in his hands and whispering, it's okay, I'm here, it's okay. I don't know why, but I started crying then. I think it's because it had been so long since someone had rested their body on me, held my face to theirs and told me it was okay. My pain mixed with his and he wept too. No one told me how much pain and grief I would hold between my legs, how much loneliness and longing would be contained there, how much longing and lust. Client 628 told me how the only sex he'd ever had been paid for, and client 327 told me how she hadn't had an orgasm since her hysterectomy. Client 1286 was very special, is very special, and there were times when he came to see me when I was tempted to not charge, but I knew that that wouldn't end well for either of us because it hadn't ended well for me the last time I'd done it. No one told me how lonely this job can be. How being trapped in my flat all day would mean I would look forward to going to the gym because it would be somebody to talk to, and how I would let clients stay long past their time just to keep them there. No one told me how the most hateful misogyny would come from the mouths of other women, and that referring to me as an orifice and a piece of meat to be rented would be considered legitimate feminist advocacy. No one told me how my partner would say it was wrong of them to expect decency and loyalty from me because I'm a whore, and I would apologize to them and be so thankful that I'd found someone who could love me in spite of who I am, and not because of it. Client 19 had been seeing me for years. He'd held me as I'd cried over dead pets and broken hearts, and he proudly showed me pictures of his grandson and remembered when his daughter was having IVF treatment and how happy he was when she got pregnant. Client 2694 finger fucked me so hard with broken nails that I bled all over my sheets, and then he asked me if I had HIV. No one told me how over time I would forget about my own sexuality, how I would shape relationships based on compliancy rather than compromise, that I would forget that my body is my own, that I belong to me, and that I deserve pleasure as well. Client 68 saw me the week my grandpa died, and when I got embarrassed about being sad, he went, "It's all right, darling, clients are humans too." No one told me how the strongest bonds and the fiercest love would come from the women that I'd once seen as my competition. How in a matter of minutes upon meeting, we'd open our homes and our hearts and our hands to each other, sharing secrets and tricks. Everything from how to tell your girlfriend you've got gonorrhea, to working whilst grieving your sister's death, to which concealer best covers a black eye. No one told me that society treats sex workers the way it really wishes it could treat all women, especially migrant women and women of colour, trans women and disabled women, as perpetual victims under the carceral state, infected through police intrusion, and ultimately needing to be saved from their disgusting selves. Client 257 had been very specific in our email correspondence. He told me he didn't want chit-chat. He wanted me in character from the moment he entered my flat, straight into scene. He said he wanted a high-end fuck doll he didn't resist, and I agreed because, well, I don't need to justify why I agreed. It was my job. He was the sole carer of a mother. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't need to justify why I agreed. It was my job. When he arrived, he said he'd been thinking, and he asked for some time to explain himself. He was the sole carer of a mother with dementia who no longer recognised him. His wife, tired of coming second, had long left. His job fired him after too many absences, and his friends, awkward and bored, no longer returned his calls. I wanted someone who let me be in complete control, he said, but he didn't really. He told me about his mother and then his alcoholic father for the whole hour, and stayed for another to ask about mine. He told me how he'd often considered suicide, believing that once his mother finally died, there would be no reason for him to wake up in the morning. I thought about him often after he left, but when I tried to call sometime later, his number was no longer in use. No one told me how my rapes would become entertainment, and that musicians and filmmakers, journalists and actresses would take my labour and my pain and turn it into art. No one told me that I should be grateful for having words ripped from my mouth to be told by other, better people who weren't tainted by the act, but were so brave for talking about it anyway. And no one told me that if I was paid every time someone told my story for me, I'd have enough money to not have to be a prostitute. Client 262 told me how he was unable to have a relationship with a grown woman because he only thought about children. Client 263 couldn't have an orgasm without thinking about his mother. No one told me then what I know now to be true, that I deserve the love that I wish to receive, that I'm more than the sum of my parts or the vastness of my experience, that my body holds the score of trauma inflicted and wounds and felt of wounds long healed but still tender to touch, and that the anger in me is real because I feel it, that my stories are mine and I can fight those who stop me from telling them or think that they tell them better, and that I may have to gloss over the fear, isolation, self-loathing and despair to legitimize my existence, but my existence is legitimate. I don't need punchlines or self-deprecation or humility to make palatable these tales, because the truth is the truth and we only learn in how it's told. And it's blunt, and it's raw, and it's ugly, but it's real. And actually, I don't need to make consumable what I have to taste as bitter every day. And no one told me then, but I really wish that they had, that having sex for money is the easiest part of this job. Thank you. Woo!